The kidnapping and murder of Muriel McKay by two Trinidadian brothers is more riveting than any crime novel ever written. It all starts with this man, Australian-born Rupert Murdoch. His estimated worth in 2024, according to Forbes, is around 19 billion US dollars. Murdoch was instrumental in getting media companies like Fox and Sky to where they are today. However, a lot of us may know him simply as the man that tried to acquire Manchester United FC in 1998 for £625 million. The deal was stopped by UK's Competition Commission because the sale would hurt competition in the broadcasting industry. Back in 1969, Murdoch, who was living in England, had just purchased the struggling daily newspaper The Sun. One of his executives at News of the World was 60-year-old Alec McKay. Murdoch lent McKay his chauffeured Rolls-Royce in December 1969 whilst McKay was acting chairman. At the time, 38-year-old Murdoch was on vacation in Australia with his 25-year-old wife Anna. December 29th, in London's posh Wimbledon neighborhood, Alec McKay slips out of the chauffeured Rolls-Royce and rings a special code on his doorbell to let his wife, 55-year-old Muriel McKay, know it was him. They had developed the code because of an earlier break-in, but she never answers. He realizes the door is open and the house ransacked. The telephone ripped from the wall. Muriel is nowhere to be found. Let's go back to October 30th. Two Trinidadian brothers, sons of an imam, living in England, saw Murdoch pay to them a fortune for the Sun newspaper. So they decide to kidnap his 25-year-old wife, Anna, to get their slice of his pie. They follow Murdoch's Rolls-Royce to a beautiful house in the opulent Wimbledon neighborhood. On the 29th December 1969, they break into the house to kidnap 25-year-old Anna, but they encounter 55-year-old Muriel because, of course, Anna and Murdoch are in Australia and the McKays had been using Murdoch's car. So here the Trinidadian brothers are in the McKay's house facing Muriel McKay. They kidnap her anyway. The phone was repaired and at 1:15 a.m. the ransom call came in. The person on the phone identified themselves as M3 or Mafia 3. They demanded £1 million for Muriel's release because they had come up with the figure when the plan was to kidnap Murdoch's wife, Anna. But McKay immediately rebutted with, "I don't have anything like that." The Trinidadian on the other end of the line responded, "You had better get it or we execute her." The McKays received multiple calls from the M3 over the next couple weeks. Alec McKay started to believe his wife may have already been dead. This was one of the UK's first kidnapping for ransom cases. Desperation set in on the family's side and they consulted a psychic that of course gave a grieving family some trash information about Muriel being held in a shabby North London neighborhood. On January 27th, proof of life in the form of a letter supposedly written by Muriel was sent to the News of the World where Alec was an executive. It was a ransom demand with instructions for the drop-off. Police disguised themselves as the persons demanded in the letter to drop off the money. The money was put in two suitcases with supposedly £500,000 in each. But in reality, most of the notes were fake. About 140 undercover police traversed the area around the drop. M3 smelt the rat. They called off the drop because of the police trailing the Rolls-Royce being used for the drop. So the second drop-off attempt came soon after. Again, police disguised themselves as the family members that were instructed to make the drop. M3 took them on a run. They were directed to one phone booth after the next, until eventually they were instructed to drop the suitcases next to a minivan in a used car yard. But of course, the tragedy had not yet finished writing itself. A local couple saw the two suitcases next to the minivan, so did what they thought was the right thing and called the local police. The local police were unaware of the drop, so the two suitcases of ransom money were taken to the police station. However, good police work paid off. During the surveillance of the area around the ransom drop, a blue Volvo with a broken taillight was seen making several passes. A dark-colored Volvo had also been reported in the area and driveway of the McKays on the day of the kidnapping. They tracked down the address of the registered owner of the Volvo. They landed at a farm near Stocking Pelham, Hertfordshire. It must also be noted that a dark-colored Volvo had also been seen circling the first ransom drop, but with so many police in unmarked cars, it was assumed to be police. The farm was owned by 34-year-old Trinidadian Arthur Hossain. His younger brother, 22-year-old Nizamuddin, was a laborer on the farm farm since August. Some of the other evidence that linked the brothers to the crime included Arthur's fingerprints on the ransom note and a newspaper inside the McKay's house. Nizamuddin's voice matching the recordings of the ransom calls. Also, a notebook found in their possession with torn pages that matched the tear patterns in McKay's letters. During the trial, the reason for the kidnapping came out. Arthur was experiencing serious financial difficulty since buying the farm in 1968, and they saw an interview of Murdoch by David Frost where Murdoch's immense wealth came to the forefront. Hence, the kidnapping wrote itself. Also during the trial, the brothers pointed fingers at each other for the crime, but it eventually became clear that the elder brother, Arthur, was the dominant one and also very abusive to his brother. They were both found guilty of kidnapping and murder. One of the first successful murder prosecutions without a body in UK. It was one of the first cases where a recording of a phone call was sent to an acoustics laboratory for analysis to help identify the kidnappers. Some had speculated that their nationality and race may have played a part in them being prosecuted without a body. Followed 10 six-day crimes. They were both slammed with life sentences. Fortunately for Nizamuddin and Arthur, there was a suspension on the death penalty at the time of their sentencing. 1964 was the last time executions were carried out in the UK. But what had happened to Muriel McKay, the mother of three? Had she simply vanished? The trial was unable to answer that question for her family. However, the theory was that the brothers had fed her to the pigs on the farm, a theory that would linger far beyond the death of Muriel's husband, Alec, who had always yearned to recover his wife's remains. The brothers' notoriety spread wide and far. Wax figures of Nizamuddin and Arthur were displayed in Madame Tussauds Chamber of Horror. In 2009, Arthur died in prison. By that time, he had been struggling with mental illness. Nizamuddin was released in 1990 and deported to Trinidad. He would eventually marry Leela Ramdeen, but Nizamuddin had great difficulty reintegrating to Trinidad and the marriage spiraled, ending in divorce. Leela said Nizamuddin was incapable of love. Nizamuddin would in time reveal, according to him, that Muriel had died of a heart attack while they're captive, so he buried her on their farm. Time had no mercy on Nizamuddin. He descended into poverty and squalor. He resides in central Trinidad in the house that belonged to his parents. He says there are days when he doesn't have anything to eat. With his health declining and his years coming to an end, he realized he was facing his own mortality. He agreed to show the McKay family Muriel's last resting place. The McKay family offered him £40,000, but even as he fights to survive, he turned down the money, insisting he do it for free. Perhaps he sees it as his final redeeming act. In 2022, Metropolitan Police got permission from the new owners of the farm, now estimated at about £3 million, to dig. They found no trace of Muriel. The family insists the police didn't dig the area that had been pointed out. Nizamuddin has requested to go back to the UK to physically take them to the exact spot. His request has consistently been denied. In March of 2024, Scotland Yard sent a team to Trinidad to interview Nizamuddin. The agency had been informed by the family who have visited Nizamuddin in Trinidad to take a gentle approach, as it has taken them years to coax the ex-convict out of his shell. It appears that the officers saw it differently. They interrogated Nizamuddin at the Couva police station for a couple days straight. Their findings were that his information was inconsistent. The family says that is difficult to believe since his story has been unchanged for years. Diane McKay, Muriel's daughter, believes the officer's approach has jeopardized the locating of her mother's remains after they already botched the dig in 2022. As of the making of this documentary in March 2024, the next steps for the recovering of Muriel McKay's remains is unclear. But what is clear is the minutes that tick by for most of us are hours galloping for 83-year-old Diane McKay and 75-year-old Nizamuddin Hossain.